We are back on the Rational Boomer podcast. Hopefully, your day is going well. It is Friday, and we have a special guest for you today. And I say special because he hasn't been on very often, just once before. And when he was on last time, a lot of folks wanted him to come back. And that is Andy from Kansas. And he happens to be a Gen Z type of person. And it's opportune that he would come on today with all the shit. Last time we talked was July 5th, like you said, Andy.
Mhm.
And the fucking world has changed since that less than a month.
Yeah, the entire race is, I mean, the last time I was on, you know, I was planning on I'm going to vote for whoever's on the Democratic ticket. I was going to vote for Joe Biden, but man, I did not feel very hopeful. At that point in time, it seemed like Trump was unstoppable. Like it was inevitable that he was going to re-win his election bid, and but now it's different. Kamala has shaken up this race so tremendously in the short time that she's been in it. It's entirely new.
What was your immediate reaction when you heard that Joe stepped aside and then an hour later he endorses Kamala Harris before any of this shit started? What was your original thought about the whole prospects?
Well, man, I got that alert immediately with Joe stepping down. I saw the news. I got the news notification, and it was like, oh my god, like what if he steps down and he doesn't endorse Kamala? What's going to happen? This is just the worst case scenario. And then almost immediately afterwards, he endorses Kamala, and I felt pretty good. I'll be honest. I feel like I've been kind of gaslit for the past 4 years into thinking that Kamala was not going to be a good candidate. But she didn't run a particularly strong campaign in 2020, and so I guess that was my impression of her because I haven't seen her that much throughout the presidency,
Well,
and so
some people have suggested, well, when you say she didn't run a good campaign in 2020, that is true. But like we were just talking about, we're in a different world now.
oh yeah,
At the time, she was a prosecutor, a tough prosecutor that was coming out of George Floyd and defund the police and all that bullshit, you know. And so, her as a tough prosecutor took on kind of a dark feel to her. Well, we're tired of the police. But now we've got a convicted opponent, and a tough prosecutor seems like just what we need.
exactly. Back then it seemed like I would hear rhetoric from leftists like, "Oh, she's uh, just yeah, she's this awful prosecutor, and she's locked up thousands of people for smoking marijuana."
Right.
That rumor was going around back then. Even though uh, I've seen she only incarcerated like 50 people or something like that.
Right.
A pretty small amount. It was not thousands. I mean, like a lot of the disinformation is saying. Uh, and I wasn't quite as informed back then. I just, at that point in time, I wasn't involved at all. I just sort of watched the highlights that would pop up on social media. So
Right.
my opinion was of how Kamala was being slandered. And I'm so excited to see her just. I've loved this campaign so far. It's been wonderful to
It,
watch.
it has been wonderful. And, you know, it always struck me funny that, oh, she's a tough prosecutor. We don't like her. She's a prosecutor. Her job is to lock up people. If she locks up a lot of actually convicted felons, that just sounds like she's doing her fucking job. But again,
Mm-hmm.
it was different. It was different times. So when it started to take off for Kamala, and honestly, I was surprised. I said in the beginning, there's no way you can't have Joe step aside and not have Kamala. There were a lot of people that I think wanted to jump over the top of her, but I think it was a brilliant stroke by Biden to endorse her. That put some hurdles up for those people that wanted to. I thought that would be disastrous.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody in the black community would said, "You motherfuckers," but that's not what happened. And when it started to take off for her, I think all the people that were maybe naysayers about her being the candidate said, fuck
Mhm.
it. I'm not going to get rolled over by this rock. I'm just going to jump on board and ride this train for all it's worth. Were you surprised by how much enthusiasm and how much momentum she got from the beginning?
Absolutely shocked. I've never felt anything like that. I was 10 when Obama got elected.
Right.
And so I don't really have a good recollection of what that was like. But like elections for me have just always been so bitter and nasty, and let's pick the lesser of two evils. But with Kamala, it's almost like we're excited for prospect of some change here. Let's finally be done with MAGA Trumpism and
Yeah.
start to heal.
A lot of old people like to tell me, and I guess I do too, what Gen Z likes and what they don't like. You're a Gen Z person. You probably talk to other Gen Z people.
Mhm.
What do you think the overall attitude uh, is now? I know the Gen Zs were kind of, Joe's old. He's my great grandpa. I'm not that excited about it. Do you see a dramatic shift in people of your age right now?
Absolutely. My boss is a fellow white guy in his mid 20s, and I talk to him sometimes about, like, we'll talk about politics and current events. And he didn't like Biden. Biden was just too old,
Yeah, he
sleepy Joe.
was.
Yeah, and I could admit that Joe Biden. I am very thankful that Biden stepped down. But with Kamala, like, he's really been kind of coming around to the idea. He made all, like, the thing with Trump's campaign is the entire thing has been based on Joe's too old. That's like one of their biggest talking points is that Joe Biden was mentally incompetent and couldn't do this job. And so a lot of those people that were, uh, I guess, entranced by that argument, um, some of them have started to question Trump now that he's the old dog in the race.
I never,
Is
I never understood that. If you know anything about Donald Trump, and it's been 8 years, you had an opportunity to learn. You've seen all the things, the convictions, and you can say, I don't like Joe Biden, but I compare him like this. Joe Biden is a Reuben sandwich with stale bread. Donald Trump is a shit sandwich. Which one do you want to eat if you have to eat one? I mean, that I've always thought that this wasn't about who was more popular, Donald Trump or Joe Biden, or even in this case with Kamala Harris. It's the unprecedented amount of people that hate Donald Trump and are terrified of Donald Trump. I thought that would be the deciding factor in the election, whether Joe was a hot prospect or not.
Yeah. Um, I think the sad reality is that there's a lot of folks in this country who will vote for theater over policy.
Yeah,
Um,
I
you
agree.
know, you can have the best policy on the planet. I'd argue that a lot of Joe Biden's policies were phenomenal. He got quite a lot done with as difficult of a time as it's been, but people just don't care. You can tell them all day long that unemployment is the lowest it's been in decades, and it's just it's not sensational. It's not
Yeah,
exciting. And
yeah.
Trump, for how disgusting he is, he's an entertainer first and foremost, and he's phenomenal at that job. He knows how to entertain.
Well, he knows how to make noise and he knows how to stir things up. And that's a sad commentary on this country when you would rather watch Jerry Springer and just watch bullshit as opposed to what was once 60 Minutes, which was a serious news program. But that's in fact where we are right now. People want to be entertained, people want to see sensational stuff. And that's part of the reason why we have the media the way it is now. They're leaning more toward the tabloid because they got to attract I mean, we're becoming kind of an unsophisticated crowd of people when it comes to media consumption.
I agree with that. I don't know that we've ever been a particularly
True.
sophisticated crowd, but uh, back in the, like, back in the day when you had to sit down and watch an entire 2 hour movie. Like nowadays, kids just they'll sit and watch TikToks. Like I have a 9-year-old little brother, and I can watch YouTube videos with him, but trying to get him to sit down and just watch a movie with me, it's crazy how difficult that can be.
Well, and that's ironic that you at 26 years old would be the kind of the old man and remembering what the old days were. I mean, back in the old days, there was three networks and an independent channel, and you didn't have a lot of choices. There was no cable, there was no streaming, there were no computers. So I think what we got as far as information was more limited.
Mhm.
And you would think in this day and age with so much media that we would be better informed. But I honestly believe because of the stuff that's coming out of our media, we're less informed than we were when we had less media confronting us.
I'd completely agree with that. News, it wasn't sensational back in the day. It was meant to provide facts. As to my knowledge, like news didn't really become sensational until like I think there was something passed by Reagan that allowed like before that point, networks had to present both sides and you had to be unbiased. And Reagan passed some sort of piece of legislation that allowed for more open conservative like networks.
But
And then you,
you got rid of the fairness doctrine, and the
yes,
fairness
yeah,
doctrine was where it used to be, and you don't remember this because you're not old enough. But
yeah, I wasn't.
there was a time when you'd go on and you'd talk about your political person, and somebody says you got to give us equal time, and they would have to give you equal time for the other side. They
Mhm.
got rid of that, and now we've got these right side, left side type of media. Yeah, yeah. Reagan wasn't our friend. Reagan, and I voted for him because I didn't know. I was 20 years old. Fuck,
Well,
I didn't
I
know what that
mean,
was
I
about.
voted for Trump one time, so hey,
Yeah.
don't
Well,
blame me.
you're a kid. I mean, you go with what's catching your attention. Now, if you're, this is what I found ironic. The people are listening to this on Friday. So yesterday, um, Joe Biden, the guy they needed to step aside, the guy that couldn't finish a sentence by Republicans' minds and some Democrats' minds, pulls off a fucking amazing thing. He gets four people, three American citizens, one with a green card, released from Russian prisons. Two of them are of note: Evan Gershkovich, who's a journalist, I think, from Wall Street Journal. And then there's Paul Whelan, who's been in there since 2018. Now, for a guy that's losing it and on the way out, what Joe Biden did was huge. Nothing like this has been done since the Cold War days back in my youth. Um, and then on the other side of the coin, you have Donald Trump at the National Association of Black Journalists, and he does what he does. You take a comparison of those two things, and it's fucking night and day. It's crazy.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's Joe Biden being able to pull off that prisoner exchange. I didn't know if he was going to be able to do it. It seemed like Russia was kind of holding them they were holding them hostage, and Trump was trying to play that card, saying, "Oh, they'll be released if I'm reelected."
Right.
I heard him make that comment a while back, and if you read, did you read his Truth Social post about the situation today?
I didn't know. I didn't read it. But so
Uh,
feel free.
yeah, I'm not gonna read out the whole thing, but just a disgusting, absolute disgrace. I mean, you could tell that he's just absolutely livid that these men were released under Biden. He is furious that Joe was able to get this win. Like it's not a win. This isn't a political game. This is the lives of four Americans who are trapped in a foreign country. I they We should be working to bring them home. Like it
Yeah.
doesn't matter who's in office. Just
Well,
uh,
it's the same attitude he had with the bipartisan border bill.
Absolutely.
For everybody involved, it was a good thing. Republicans, Democrats agreed on it. They need they needed some help on the border, and he said no because it would make Joe Biden look good.
Hmm.
I mean, that should tell people right there that he doesn't really give a shit about the country or the people in the country. He only cares about his own prospects and this upcoming election. But I don't know if you saw, there was an address that Joe Biden did after this all happened. And he
Hmm.
had some of the family members up there. It was very touching. It was very presidential. And he was announcing what happened. And just as he's finishing up and going to walk, he answered a couple press questions. And then he was starting to walk off the stage. And somebody yelled from the crowd, well, Donald Trump says he wouldn't have had to give up anything if he was in office. And Joe just saunters back with a smirk on his face and he says, so why didn't he do it? Because Paul Whelan went in 2018. There was 2 years
Yeah.
he was in captivity while Donald Trump was president.
Yeah. That Paul Whelan, I will be very intrigued to hear some of his story once he gets back here because I can't even imagine being trapped for 6 years because he
Yeah,
doesn't speak Russian. If I'm
I don't think he does. No.
yeah, I'm pretty sure he doesn't, and so that's just nightmare fuel to me. Getting locked up in a foreign country where I can't even speak the same language, like man, ah,
That's how I feel sometimes being married for 40 years. Sometimes we don't speak the same language. She speaks
yeah.
female. I'm kidding. Now all the women are out there going, "Don't talk shit about your wife. She talks shit about me. It's part of our little lifestyle here. I give her shit. She gives me shit." But let's talk about Donald Trump's occurrence or event with the black journalist. I don't even know why he went. That seems like a crazy decision. He must feel desperate for exposure and he doesn't have the money to buy the exposure. So he'll just go anywhere, lemonade stand or whatever, just to show up and talk to a crowd.
I mean, like I was floored by what I saw. I don't really get surprised by Donald Trump these days. Like he says vile, disgusting remarks on a daily basis. I'm not surprised, but just seeing that interview, I don't know if I've ever seen such a spectacularly terrible 35 minutes. Like, I don't know if I've watched him give an interview that bad. It's
No.
just every single response was worse than the last almost. I mean, he just kept digging the hole deeper. It's almost I do not understand why he would go on there. Like his team had to know what he could have expected.
Well, he doesn't learn any lessons either. Somebody brought up the term black jobs. Everybody knows that was received poorly, but he
Yeah.
goes off on black jobs in
And
this
he
interview.
doubles down on it.
He doubles, triples down on it. What the fuck is he thinking? Jesus Christ. And then I thought this was interesting when he said that Kamala Harris turned black all of a sudden. See,
Oh,
I didn't think I didn't know that was an option. Had I known that, I might have been black a long time ago, but I've never known that was, I mean, that was just so silly.
yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't,
In the way he described it, he was like, and one day she just decided she just turned black. Like, no, that's not how it works.
that's what I said in my heritage, I'm Norwegian, Swedish, and German. Which one can I claim? That's the question I would have for Donald Trump. I can't claim German or Norwegian or Swede. It's just so silly. This is a guy grasping at straws just to find anything. And here's a guy that doesn't think about what he says, really has no plan. Whatever comes to the top of his head, he thinks it's genius and he just spews it out. Everybody thinks he's smart. He's not a smart man. He's a very ignorant man.
It really is. I mean, that's something that I look back on. I When I was 18, I was under the delusion that he was this brilliant businessman. Um,
Yeah.
and it's hard for me to think back to that time because I look at of how I look at him now, but he did such a brilliant job marketing himself and just selling this image of a successful, intelligent businessman. But if you really listen to him, I mean, he talks like a fifth grader.
Yeah, he really does.
It's
He really
dumb.
does. Well, the thing about it is it's not even so much that he's a brilliant marketer. He's a bully by nature. So what he does is he controls the narrative. He dominates the narrative. When somebody wants to speak against him, he talks over them. And that's a common ploy with bullies. It isn't, and even back then I said the only way you handle bullies like that is to push back, slap the taste out of their mouth. You can't fold up and die. And that was the one problem that Biden had. Biden is an aggressive guy. He isn't a confrontational guy. He's facts, he's measured, he's normal, and
Mhm.
that's a bad combination going against this fucking snowball going down the hill, even
I'd
though the
argue
snowball
that
has no
Hillary was the
substance.
same way. I
Yeah,
think
I
she
agree.
was ill prepared to face. Hillary Clinton could face off against any career politician, but you throw her against Donald Trump, she didn't know what she was. She didn't have a plan. I mean, how do you run against that?
Well, and the interesting thing is one of the reasons I think people are so excited about Kamala, because
Mhm.
she is a bit of a warrior. She ain't
Oh
taking no shit.
no,
She
she pushes back, and like the debate against the between those two, I cannot wait to watch that. She is going to wipe the floor with Donald.
Well, she understands what to do, and I always said that about Joe Biden. I said, Joe Biden, you got to go on the attack, and you got to be pushing hard. And maybe he just wasn't capable by his nature or just because he's old. But Kamala's
Yeah,
got plenty of energy, and she's pretty good at snapping back. Do you think for Gen Zs that I know it is for older folks. Do you think that's it for Gen Zs that they might like Kamala because they finally feel like we're in the fight now? We're not just doing this rope a dope thing that Joe was doing.
that's a big thing. I think a lot of Gen Z is excited at the prospect of like, you know, hearing my whole life, the Democrat adage of like, when they go low, we go high. I'm sorry, but you do that until the end of time, and like that's not a successful strategy every time. Sometimes you do have to fight back a little bit. And I think Kamala just has struck a perfect balance of like, she's not outright name calling. She's not sitting out there stooping to his level, but at the same time, she's not afraid to, question or talk about his record, talk about what a vile man he is, what all the facts, just laying them out in a way that Biden was never able to articulate.
Well, and I think you're right about Kamala. She hits an interesting balance because they're double standards for women. She could
Mm-hmm.
come off like a bitchy woman, like maybe Hillary did, or she could come off like an angry black woman.
Mm-hmm.
But she doesn't. I mean, she's tough, but she'll also laugh with you. She'll dance, as they'll say, and
Fun.
she's sensitive with kids and other people. She does hit that perfect balance.
Yeah, it's man, she's a great candidate. I've
A
uh
month ago, you wouldn't have said that though.
no, a month ago, I don't think I would have said she was a bad candidate, but I would have had I had my reservations. I thought that I wondered if America was too racist and too like if we were going to be able to elect a black woman. I had my doubts, and those have been quelled. I really believe that she could win this.
That's a good point. I know before there, Joe stepped aside. I spoke to Old Soul, who's a young black woman, and I said, "What do you think about Kamala um, being the candidate if Joe steps aside?" She goes, "Oh no, that will never work. That will never work." And it wasn't that she didn't like Kamala. It was
Yeah,
because of her experience with racism in this country. She didn't think she'd have a chance to win, and then we would lose to Donald Trump. And so she didn't like that idea. At that time, being an old white guy, knowing pretty much fucking everything, I said, I don't know if that's going to play as big a role as it once did. And that's big talk from a white guy talking about, I don't think the race or the gender is going to be a big deal. Um, I, th- I think I think what's more important to people right now is that they feel safe. or they feel like they have a chance, or they feel like they have hope. And I think, so, I mean, I always felt Biden would win because I thought Donald Trump was just such a shit show. Enough people would vote against him where it wouldn't, he couldn't win. But now a lot of people who weren't feeling hope, and trust me, I get a lot of people coming to my comments saying they aren't hopeful at all back then. Everybody seems to have some hope. And I
Yeah,
think that's the big thing behind the enthusiasm.
it really is. Feels good to just be hopeful again. You know, Biden, he was always kind of a candidate that you just settled for. Like I wasn't um the age thing, yeah, it's kind of hard like as a young guy to get like real excited for this old octogenarian president. Um Gonna support the hell out of him, but that's not exciting.
No.
Kamala, that is. She brings so much excitement to this campaign, and I love it.
Well, and I think they're going about it the right way. They understand what they need to do. Um, they need to keep attacking Donald Trump, keep him on his heels, because those are the things that make him unhinged. And when he's unhinged, he makes ridiculous mistakes, like with the Black Journalists Group. He's flailing right now. And because he doesn't think about what he's doing, he doesn't strategize, he is going to do things that sink himself. And that's exactly what's happening. And we've just begun. I mean, she's only been she's only been a candidate for going on 2 weeks now. She's
Mm-hmm.
already raised more money than she has. Were you surprised by that, by how much money came in so quickly?
Yeah, actually, I that amount, $81 million in 24 hours. I mean, damn, it's a
That's
lot.
crazy.
You know, I tossed her $10. I've never donated to a candidate before, but she popped up on my Facebook, and I said, you know, I'll do
Fuck
that.
yeah.
Why
Yeah.
not?
Well, then we had these Zoom calls. That was interesting too. It's about technology now, more in your vein than the old people. But she got 44,000 black women. She got a bunch of black men. She got 136,000 white women on a Zoom call. The white men took a shit at first, and then they did a redo, and they got 180 million. We're talking about close to $10 million they raised in that set of Zoom calls. That surprised me a lot.
Yeah. Uh, yeah, man, I was ecstatic. Yeah, I'm not seeing a lot of bad news. Like this whole campaign, it's just been like, wow, I can breathe again. I feel like they just keep on making good moves.
Uh,
Like all these news stories that I see about the campaign, they're usually positive. They're a new good story. Um, Whereas for Trump, it's just like every single thing that could be going wrong for him is right now, and that is wonderful to see.
Well, Kamala's in a prime position right now because she can campaign all day, every day. She can talk forever. And then Joe Biden is back kicking ass for the administration, getting
Mhm.
prisoners released, cutting deals, whatever he's doing. Because whether he's old or not, he knows what the fuck he's doing and he's getting a lot done, probably more than any other president, certainly in my lifetime. So they got that balance. But I think there's another aspect to this. And as a younger man and somebody who consumes the media, I think with Donald Trump when he first came out, I call, and I don't mean this literally, but he was kind of the media darling. He's the shiny piece of whatever the fuck that's catching everybody's attention. And so the media just kind of flocked around him trying to make money and get views out of that sort of thing. Well, now what he's doing is pretty much the same shit he's done for the last 8 years. And now Kamala is a new shiny object. They're excited about here. That's the story. This woman comes out of obscurity, kind of, as a vice president. And now she's got this huge momentum and all these people excited about her. And I think that works to her advantage for the next 3 months because we only need it to go 3 more months because the media is going to focus on her like they did Donald Trump back in the day. And
Mhm.
that's going to benefit her ultimately.
Yeah, just the timing of everything. it feels, I think that that's an optimal time for a campaign. You know, she had just about 100 days on the dot to
Right.
get going. And, you know, I think that's to her benefit. Like ridiculously long campaign cycles are kind of a uniquely American tradition. Like when over in the UK they just had elections and it was like Rishi Sunak called them and then like they happened a couple weeks later. Like
Right.
they're real quick. Um, for Americans, it's just like there's always some sort of election campaign going on, and so I think it was just the shorter length of this is to Kamala's benefit because people are more easy to get engaged for like 3 months than they
Right.
are to try and rile them up for an entire year before the election, you know?
And with Donald Trump, he started 2 years out.
Yeah.
He started two. You know, I think that people's attention spans are limited these days. They like what's cool, they like what's exciting, and it's going to be easier for Kamala to maintain that because, you know, frankly, Donald Trump is probably the worst presidential candidate in the history of the country. There's so much she can pick on him for, whether it be
Yeah.
Jeffrey Epstein, the convictions, the stealing of documents, the fucked up show with the black journalist. She's got a smorgasbord of things she can pound on Donald Trump with, and she's fully capable of doing that.
Absolutely. You know, the best that we ever got out of Joe Biden was one time he said that Donald Trump has the morals of an alley cat. I think
Right.
that was the most scathing remark that he was able. It's just night and day. Kamala can, she knows exactly how to attack him and do it in that criminal prosecutor way that we just so desperately needing right now.
Well, and that's the ironic thing that we come to this. They characterize it as such, and I think it's brilliant. The prosecutor versus the convicted felon. And
Mm-hmm.
that's essentially what it is. And that's part of the reason why Donald Trump does not want to go to that debate. He knows what she's capable of. And we've watched him for 4 years avoid talking to prosecutors because he's required to tell the truth and he's required to speak in straight terms, and he's just not capable of it. I mean, I think he's emotionally and mentally not capable of it. I don't think he's so smart that he's avoiding this stuff or averting things. I think he is just so scattered and so scared that he just says whatever comes to him.
Yeah, it'll be a night and day difference between that first debate. You know, in that debate, he was so confident and smarmy, and he had it in the bag, and he did. But with Kamala, like I guarantee, you know, I agree with you. He's going to be just floundering. He's not going to know how to respond to real scathing, punching remarks like she'll be delivering.
Well, and he's not going to be, he can't beat anybody with facts or data or anything like that. All he can do is roll over the top of you. And he kind of did that with Biden. He kind of did that with Hillary. He knows he's not going to be able to do that with Kamala because Kamala's going to stop him and push back. And that
Mm-hmm.
is the absolute last thing a bully wants, somebody who's going to fight back. And if you fight back, they usually curl up and cry. And I think he understands that that's what's going to happen. Now, Kamala says she's going to be there. He says, well, I don't know. I might not get there. And then she comes out on stage, does the right thing, and says, if you got something to say to me, say it to my face. Well, that's an outright challenge to Donald Trump. And Donald Trump cannot, in his wildest dreams, appear to look weak. So he's in quite a quandary now. He doesn't want to go to the debate because he'll get his ass kicked, but he doesn't want to be a chicken shit either. So he's kind of caught.
Well, he's in the same predicament with his wonderful vice president pick, JD
Oh,
Vance. You know, the smart thing to do is to dump that motherfucker and just run away. But no, he can't do that because, well, first of all, I think it's too late. I don't think he can do that even if he wanted to. But second of all, it's just like he looks so incredibly weak. He
right.
would look
I think
pathetic.
I think he could. You'd have to jump through a lot of hoops. I think he could. Um, I think that he could drop him, but you're right. He would look too weak. And what are you going to get to replace him? Jim Jordan? Like that's any better? So,
uh,
he doesn't have much to choose from. And
no,
Nikki Haley ain't going to do it, especially now that she sees he's going to lose. I don't know why it took this long for her to understand that, but um,
can't
yeah,
believe she endorsed Trump, and she's. And have you seen that she's trying to get the Haley voters for Harris PAC to change their name? So
yeah.
yeah, like just so low. Like I'm sorry, Nikki Haley, but actually you don't own the copyright to the name Haley, so I don't think that that's something you could even do.
What do you think? I've always wondered as I watch people. You said you voted for Trump, and I'll cut you some slack because you're a kid, but um, and it would have had to have been in 2020, right?
2016. I
You
was 18
voted.
2016.
Okay, 2016. I'll cut you some slack. 2020, after you've
No,
seen 4 years, come on,
I voted Biden in 2020, and I
good
am
for you.
proud of that.
Good,
I
good.
felt very vindicated after January 6th.
Yeah, yeah, no shit. Um, but I wonder sometimes all these people that have been cowards and stuck by Donald Trump's side, as I watch them now after going through those first 4 years and now the next 4 years, I'm trying to decide when they realize that it's been too long. Because when Donald Trump loses in November, if not before, the roof is going to fall in on Donald Trump and the MAGA group and the Republican Party. They're not going to come out of this just as losers. They're going to come out of there as pariah. Now you got these young people like the Nikki Haley's or the JD Vances or whatever. They go through that all the way to the election and are there when the roof falls in. That stink is going to be on them for a long time, and they still have to try to have careers. What's going to happen when they say, "Yeah, but you supported Donald Trump, the worst human in American history," because that's how he'll go down ultimately. I don't know what's in their minds, why they keep sticking to it, and they can't see what the inevitable is.
I don't know. JD Vance to me just is so. It seems like the guy had pretty radically different views just a few years ago, and he decided to abandon all his principles and sell his soul to MAGA. And that to me is just especially offensive.
Every time I have listeners on as guests, I always learn something, different things from different people, and especially Old Soul. She brought up a scenario that I had not thought about. It sounds like a conspiracy theory. I'm not going to say it's true, but it gives you something to think about. JD Vance was pushed on Donald Trump by Elon Musk and Peter Thiel,
Mm-hmm.
the tech guys. And of course, Donald Trump's son helped to push him on. And Elon said, I'll give you 45 million a month if you put him on. So they put him on. And you wonder, why were they so hard about putting JD Vance on? And this is what Old Soul said. And it sounds crazy, but maybe not. They said, listen, Donald Trump's 78 years old. He's not in the best health. He's not in the best emotional or physical health. Chances of him making it through the next 4 years is slim. If Donald Trump keels over, then JD Vance is the president. Peter Thiel and Elon Musk are in the Oval Office helping to call shots.
Yep.
That sounds pretty sinister, but it's not crazy in the world we live in today.
I think that there's probably a lot of truth to that. I believe that I think that if it really was Elon Musk, it just brings me so much joy that Elon Musk saddled Trump with this awful vice president pick and then backed out and said, "I'm sorry, guys. That was just a rumor from the Wall Street Journal. I didn't mean to confuse any of you." Like, no, he just backed out because he saw the writing on the wall after Kamala. joined the race, he saw that Trump wasn't going to win, and he got cold feet. Uh,
Yeah, I agree. I agree. And JD Vance is so horrible when it comes to messaging. You know, that stupid rumor about the couch thing. And he has a headline that said, I did not have sex with a couch.
yeah,
Why would you say that? And then he's up talking in front of a crowd. He's not thinking. He said, I'd have my wife come up here, but then I'd be sleeping on the couch. You know, I get what he's saying, but come on, just watch it a little bit. This guy is one of, he's like a young Donald Trump that hasn't become quite as rancid as Donald Trump, but he's headed that way. This is a bad guy. This is a guy that will go whatever the wind blows as long as it means power and money to him.
yeah. You
How do you,
know,
how do you think Gen Z sees JD Vance with all that we know now and just who he is? And he's a younger guy. He's 39. Do you think they ever looked at him as positive?
even my conservative friends, they don't like JD Vance. I'm friends with a few Trump supporters, and they sure don't like JD Vance.
Yeah.
I don't think I've met anybody who has a positive opinion of that man. Like, uh, the fact, like the other day, my dad texted me and said, "Did JD Vance have sex with a couch?" Like, my this is a rumor that has breached the mainstream. Okay, like it's not just an online thing anymore. I mean, regular voters are hearing this. Like,
You know how that came about, don't you? Do you know how that storyline came about?
well, I assume it was like just some rumor that started on X.
No, I think I don't know the whole story, but I think while he was in college, he made a film or something, kind of an ironic comedic film, and it's
Mhm.
about a guy who fell in love with a couch. And there's some video of him, you know, stroking the couch and stuff like that. So from that, that's where this came. And
Hey,
you
I
know,
want to see that video now.
you got video now, and the jokes all over. I mean, he just getting riddled with the jokes. I you have to wonder, did anybody vet this fucker? Or did Elon says take him so we don't have to vet him?
I hear that Don wanted Doug Burgum.
That
That
would
would
have
have,
been a safe bet. He's boring
yeah,
as
that
shit.
would have been that's exactly what Trump needed. I don't know why he didn't pick him, but
Yeah.
I'm sure he regrets that choice.
Well, he does regret the choice, and I'm sure he's just ranting and raving. And he's caught in a corner because, like we said, he could dump him if he wanted. It's not unprecedented. It happened one time before in '72. I think I've told the story where um, George McGovern took Thomas, I think it's Thomas Eagleton, and then they found as vice president, and then they found out that he had the audacity of having a couple of appointments with a psychiatrist. And back then, that's all it took. He went to a psychiatrist, he's fucking gone. Then they went with Sergeant Shriver, who was a Kennedy in-law, and McGovern, of course, lost. But it does kind of upend the campaign if you do that this close. They maybe could do it, but they're damned if they do and damned if they don't. They'd probably be better off trying to um, rehabilitate JD Vance's image, but that ain't going to happen either.
It's unsalvageable. There's no way.
Yeah, so we got him picking the absolute worst choice for VP and then having the worst interview in the history of presidential politics. That doesn't bode well for him going into the next 3 months.
No, no, I think it's going to get worse for him, and I can't wait.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Andy, we're going to take a quick break and we'll be back. We'll talk about VPs. I want to get your take on the shooting thing too, the assassination attempt. That still
Sure.
flummoxes me. But we'll take a quick break and we will be right back.
All right.
We are back on the Rational Boomer podcast. With us today is Andy from Kansas. He is a Gen Z person, which is a great thing to have here. You know, most of the people who listen to the show, a lot of the people that come on the show are older folks. Now, you're a Gen Z, old soul as a younger person at 42. But it's nice to get a different perspective. One of the things I've always thought Donald Trump was going to lose, whether it be Joe Biden or Kamala, is that people have to have a certain amount of fatigue or just exhaustion with all the chaos and all the bullshit that's going on. Every day there's something different, right? Thank
Mhm.
God for me, it gives me something to talk about every day. But do you feel like people of your age are just getting just fucking tired of dealing with crazy shit every day? You got important stuff in your lives.
Yeah, it's nonstop. Every day there's some sort of news story that comes out and the game changes and like just man, I can't wait to live in a boring time where there's just nothing going on because it just feels like a lot of my life it's been like one crisis or calamity after another. I don't remember 9/11. I was 3 years old when it happened, but like I sure grew up feeling the effects of that, you
Oh,
know,
yeah.
like,
Yeah.
and the '08 recession and just one crisis after the other, it just never stops. And so I love the idea of living in a boring time where just things go smoothly. And obviously, that's never really a thing. There's always some sort of problem happening in the world, but you know what I mean. Like it
Well,
wasn't always like this.
well, when I was 26 years old in 1986, Ronald Reagan was the president. I
Mhm.
didn't think too much about politics. If something weird happened, something big happened, I'd notice it, but I didn't think about politics day to day. And that's really how it should be. I mean, young people like yourself, or even old people like me, we got to have time to think about our own lives and live our own lives.
Mhm.
When the news cycle and all the politics bullshit going on, it makes it much tougher to live our lives. Now, you mentioned 9/11, and 9/11 was a tragic moment in time. But as you said, there was a hangover for some 10 years or something afterwards of the after effects because of 9/11. And I'm just going to warn you ahead of time what we've gone through over the last 8 years with Donald Trump, when Donald Trump is finally gone, we are going to see light at the end of the tunnel. It's going to get better, but there's still going to be a hangover from for this country from what it's gone through for the last 8 years. So it's going to be on you motherfuckers to fix that shit because we're too goddamn old.
I guess we'll see. I mean, there's so many like the most impactful thing that Trump did to this country, I would say, is probably the Supreme Court,
Yeah, yeah,
putting these justices in there and just like the Chevron doctrine, like I don't think anybody really knows what that's going to look like. I haven't seen any judges that have been like exercising their newfound power without the Chevron doctrine, but one of them will, and then that's going to open the floodgates, and you know, it'll be just a shit show to see who controls. Like, does the FDA get to say what goes on the grocery store shelves, or is it going to be some random judge in Texas who
right.
has strong opinions? Like, these are questions that we shouldn't be asking.
No.
Chevron was that one. I couldn't believe when they overturned that.
Well, I still think the biggest issue, that's a huge issue. The immunity thing, that's a huge issue. But I still think the big issue that's going to affect this election, even though it happened 2.5 years ago, is overturning Roe v. Wade. And what I
Yeah.
always find ironic is you find people my age arguing over whether there should be abortion or not, where none of us are going to have any more children. We're
Mhm.
talking about the future, and there is no future children in our lives. It's going to affect you. Do you feel like that abortion issue is a big thing amongst Gen Zs?
Massive, massive issue. I mean, uh, there's just abortion is a popular position. The pro-choice, that is where the majority of Americans are at, and especially amongst young people, like even young men. Like, it's not just women who care about that. Like, I know a lot of men, even some conservative leaning ones, who don't feel that Roe v. Wade should have been overturned. It just the story, like the stories that have come out about it, like some of those situations in Texas or Oklahoma. There's a woman who had to like wait in a parking lot until she went septic before the
Right.
doctors would terminate the pregnancy. Like these are real consequences, and people are having to examine them now. I don't know.
Well,
It's pretty.
well, we have Old Soul come on the show once a week, and she's an amazing lady. I don't know if you've ever heard her, but she's always doing something to protest or help. But one of the things she does is she's in Nevada. And when there are women, she's with some organization, when there are women who are in states where abortion is illegal, and for whatever reason somebody needs an abortion, whether they were raped or it's incest or they're physically not capable of doing this. They can't do it in their home state. So she makes a spot for them in her home to stay with her. And then she'll help them through the process. I mean, it's absolutely crazy. I don't know whatever got her to do this, but the stories you hear, the tragic stories. I mean, I think back in the day when we talked about abortions, it was like, oh, women just having sex, they get pregnant, and just for convenience sake, they have an abortion. But that's not really what's happening. There are people, women struggling, um, women that have a problem with a pregnancy or they're raped or they're incest or they're 12 years old. It's the stories are just absolutely tragic. And that should be enough to get people to understand that people need the choice. Women need the choice over their own body.
Yeah.
Do you
You
think
know,
do you think young women of your age group, do they realize that what's happened here is they've essentially taken a constitutional right away from them? Do they grasp that? Do you think? You don't think so?
I don't think many folks grasp that. Um, no, that would be a good thing to like. That would be a good point to try and make to people, though. Like describe it as, yeah, it was a constitutional right, and that was what was stripped away.
Right. They understand the danger aspect of it or
Of
the
course.
choice aspect. I mean, the idea of somebody not having full autonomy over their body is absolutely ridiculous. In fact, Kamala Harris had Brett Kavanaugh on the stand when they were interviewing him to be appointed to the Supreme Court. And
Hmm.
Kamala asked this question. She said, can you name any law that dictates over the body of a man, the male body? Any law out there that stops a man from doing something with his own body? And Kavanaugh just kind of stammered and stuttered and I don't know what you're talking. I need a beer. but but and that's one of the reasons I like Kamala. Kamala is a part of her job as vice president. She was really the one at the point going after this overturning Roe v. Wade. She's a strong supporter. She knows what's up, and she happens to be a woman. And I think that's going to help the cause immensely.
I think so too. Roe v. Wade getting overturned is what prevented a red wave in 2022.
Right.
That's what stopped it, and that really helped us in just last year. Ohio, they were able to successfully like pass an abortion referendum.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm remembering right, like Democrats are, we understand like the sway that those abortion referendums have. That's why I'm really excited to see like that there's going to be one in Arizona. Hell, like I don't think that Kamala could win Florida. I don't believe that can happen. But like with the abortion referendum on the ballot down there, who knows?
Well, consider this. I'm not trying to sell you on this because I don't know, but I've heard a lot of people suggest that Florida could turn blue. Here's a couple of things to consider.
Yeah.
The abortion issue is on the ballot.
Mm-hmm.
Legalizing marijuana is on the ballot.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that state is an absolute shit show. They can't get people building houses. Insurance is going up. There's all kinds of problem, and it's becoming a bad place to live, which is tragic because Florida is a beautiful state. And then we hear about the villages in Central
Yeah,
Florida.
that
Now,
was crazy.
the villages is a hotbed for Trumplafucks and STDs. So, so these are all people of my age. The idea of people my age getting STDs, I don't want to think about that. I don't want to think about what's going on down there. But anyway, they've got these hundreds of golf carts coming together to support Kamala. I wonder if you're in Florida and you're living in a state with so many problems, a place that was once thought as paradise, but you've got all these problems. Are people getting tired of it and don't really care if it's Republican or Democrat just so they get some relief?
I don't know. Florida's an interesting one because like they've had a lot of immigration into that state,
Right.
and I'm going to assume that a lot of those immigrants are people who are big DeSantis fans who liked his policies. Um, and so I personally have been kind of writing off Florida. I thought, well, they've done like DeSantis sort of solidified it as red. And so I wasn't even considering that. But yeah, like after I saw that turnout at the villages and just with the abortion referendum, I think it's possible because DeSantis has made it a pretty bad place to live. That insurance, like the issue with getting insurance in Florida, I mean, that just butterflies out. There's so many problems that one issue is going to cause. Like all it's going to take is one bad hurricane, and
Yeah. And they're Florida. So a bad hurricane is coming.
it's inevitability.
Yeah.
Some one of these years they're going to get hit by one.
Well, and the villages for years have, well, at least the years during Donald Trump, has been nothing but a heaping, steaming pile of Trump-fuck shit. I mean, it really has, because there's a lot of people my age and older, the boomers, if you will, and there are a lot of boomers that just don't think. I mean, I experience it from people I know, people I went to school with. I run into them and they start talking about, Kamala, like, I have a teacher that was in my school who was kind of the cool young teacher, the good looking guy. And now he's posting these ridiculous, inappropriate memes about Kamala Harris and promoting Donald Trump. And I wrote him a note. I said, Jesus, Ron, I've known you for a long time. I had you as a teacher, but I have completely lost all respect for you. If you could do that to any woman, especially a vice president, especially a candidate for president, what the fuck happened to you? And there's a lot of them, people that I know that are just saying ridiculous shit. And they will say shit that isn't true just because they heard it. They don't take the time to dig in and see what the facts are. They just heard something that they like, and now they're spewing it as if it's true.
Yeah, that's all that they have to go on. They can call Kamala Harris a bunch of slurs. They have nothing else. And so if they want to play that game, I don't believe that that's going to win over the independent voter. I mean, you look at the polls and Kamala's just skyrocketing. Like the polls are night and day. Like um, she's her favorability is through the roof. She's up in I think almost all the swing states, if not all of them. Um, that rhetoric's not going to cut it.
No, it's not. I mean, you can't win anything by going negative, and that's all really the Republicans have. That's all they've ever had. They don't have any policy or any strategy. All they can try to do is try to discredit whoever their opponent is, and
Yeah,
it's
they
now
try to make
working with
themselves
Kamala.
look marginally better.
Yeah, yeah,
Like
exactly.
it
And
just oh,
now, it's interesting to me that Kamala was able to emerge like this. I mean, when I saw her in 2016, I kind of liked her because I liked the fact that she was tough, articulate, and kind of a bulldog. But that didn't play in 2016. Now it seems to be beneficial to her, but she's not a mean, crazy bitch. She's just tough but affable at the same time. So I think she's hit the perfect balance there, and I think that's good. I heard she's pulling in a guy by the name of Plouffe. He was the one that ran the campaign for Biden in 2020, which is probably good. Um, I think at this point, when they've hit the ground running, they're pulling in all possibilities and all kinds of resources to run the perfect campaign between now and then. And that should do it because of how horrible of a campaign that Donald Trump is running. It's like night and day. It's 180 degrees.
It really is. I mean, the Trump campaign, like, if you look at I've been reading the campaign, the official statements that both of them will release, and it's just like, read the Harris ones, and they're just so, they are on the offense. Like, they are just going after, and in the Trump press releases, they usually are going to be trying to like defend themselves a little bit. Like, it's just crazy, it's having Kamala in this role. Like, she's a criminal prosecutor. She's used to being on the offense. That was her role. And that's brilliant. That's what we needed to do.
It is. I think that's what they need to do. That's what they need to keep up with a candidate like Donald Trump, an opponent like Donald Trump. The only way to go at this is on the offense, and they've got to be able to maintain that for the next 3 months. And that isn't that long a time because while those 3 months are going on, as I've always said, let Donald Trump talk because he'll fuck himself up. He'll implicate himself in a crime. And as he gets more and more cornered and the polls start going the wrong way, watch Donnie lose his shit and say even crazier stuff. I told people, I said, you know what you saw at that black journalist group? That's not the worst thing you're going to see or hear between now and November.
Yeah, there should be how far do you think he's going to go? Like, what else could he say? I guess is that's it. I saw that. I was just baffled that he made those comments, and so I'm I can't even imagine what
Well,
he's gonna do.
the stories I heard about that, first of all, he went on an hour late, as I understand. I don't know if this is just a story or if this is true, but I could see how it might be true. And the reason he went out on an hour late, if in fact that's what happened, uh, people are saying it was because Donald Trump was trying to convince them not to fact check him on the show. Don't call me out on the show. Well, of course, that's what you want, but that's exactly what should have happened in 2015. And had they done it, he would have never been president. So, of course, he doesn't want that to happen. But that interview was supposed to go an hour, and I think it went 25 minutes. And the only reason it only went 25 minutes is because they brought up Project 2025, and his own people pulled him off the stage. That
Yep.
shows you where the fear is there.
Yeah. Project 2025, like Paul Dans, I think he was like the head of it.
Right. He
Uh,
was the chairman.
yeah, he was removed, or stepped down or something. He's no longer affiliated with it. They're scared. And they do not like Kamala talking about Project 2025. I mean, it's a I'm trying to think. It was like a few days after the Trump assassination
Right.
attempt. Um, Project 2025 Google search results were already surpassing the Trump assassination attempts.
And,
I mean,
and Taylor Swift.
yeah, like, it was absolute, just Americans, they're starting to find out about it. And that's a good thing.
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing is terrifying. I've always said I don't see it ever happening because I didn't see Donald Trump winning. And that's why I never really talked about it much because I was afraid it was just doing what the media does, trying to throw things out to scare people. And on my TikToks and on the podcast, I get dozens and dozens of people every day just terrified and wanting me to talk them off the ledge. And I don't think terrifying people is necessary or is even a good thing. But this is a pretty egregious thing. And then when they attached it to Donald Trump and the Republicans and they didn't like it and it caught up steam, I said, okay, let's talk about 2025 now. Do you think people your age understand the whole 2025 thing? Is it enough in the zeitgeist where they understand kind of how draconian it is?
Yeah, I definitely think that more are finding out about it. I've had several friends who have messaged me within the last like probably since John Oliver talked about it. That was really, I think, when it kind of hit the mainstream. Um, I've had a few friends just asking me like what it is, and I send them some resources, kind of explain what I know about it, and it's good that we're aware of that because to me, the biggest question I have with Project 2025 is why did they post this all online? I mean,
Before
like,
the election. Yeah.
nobody was gonna read this. Like, it's all there and it's still up. I mean, you can still go read it right now.
Well, I think it kind of goes to what the Republicans do. They're arrogant and they do things in front of your face, hiding it in front under your nose. I don't know. I don't understand the strategy. It doesn't make any sense. What do
There
you
is
make?
no strategy.
No, it's stupid. Just like overturning Roe v. Wade before the midterms. What the fuck were you thinking?
Yeah,
And
you
then
should have
Donald,
waited a year for that one. Or,
and then
well, I don't know.
and then Donald Trump trying to delay the sentencing from July to September. A lot of people were upset about that. Well, September is a lot closer to the election.
Yeah, that
It's
helps us.
it's a September surprise now. So it's strange. What do you make of them after all this is put out there? Donald Trump's name's in the document 300 times. What are your thoughts about them trying to run away from it now? And how do you think they'll fare trying to do that?
They aren't faring very well.
No.
It's completely ineffective. And it's just cowardice. I think that it looks weak for Trump to just have to backpedal like that. I mean, and again, with JD Vance, he has this vice president who is so intertwined with this. Like, I'm pretty sure that he wrote like a foreword
Yeah.
for the book or something like that. I mean, you can't get away from it. Like Trump can't detach his name from it. He's trying to call it Agenda 47 now. Like, it's the
Which is
same.
no better.
No, it's the same shit.
Yeah. It's so you think, at least with young people, you think that Project 2025 comes into the equation as far as how they're going to vote?
It is. It is absolutely. It's a scary thing to like first of all, it just has kind of an ominous name to it.
Yeah. Yeah.
It doesn't sound like a good thing, Project 2025. It's like Star Wars Order 66. It just
Right.
sounds evil.
Yeah. It does
like
sound evil.
like you hear about it and it's not anything good. So, yeah. Yeah, I
Now,
mean, young people are aware, they're becoming more aware, and it's going to play a pivotal role in this election.
now, one of the things we're waiting to hear from Kamala Harris, and people are putting a lot of weight on it. And I don't know that it carries as much weight as people think ultimately, but she's got to decide on a vice presidential candidate.
Yep.
We know there are 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 in there. There's Pete Buttigieg, maybe. There's my governor, Tim Walz. There's Shapiro from Pennsylvania. There's Kelly from Arizona. Do any one of those vice presidential candidates spark interest from somebody of your age or turn you off with
Me
somebody of your age?
personally, I've been saying this. I would be happy with any one of her VP shortlist. There
Yeah,
isn't a bad choice on there. There's not
I
somebody
agree.
where I'm like, oh my God, please don't be that guy. They're all good.
Yeah.
Out of them, I'm a little biased maybe, but I love Andy Bashir from Kentucky. I think that dude he is wonderful to listen to, phenomenal speaker, and just I think that he provides a really good counterbalance to Vance, like being from Appalachia. He's got that just friendly Southern accent to him. Like it's not too aggressive. It's just I like him a lot. Um, and then I think realistically, I think it's going to be Josh Shapiro because he brings the biggest prize. But like, I'm not disappointed about that. I think he'd be phenomenal as VP.
No, he's young. He's 51. Shapiro is from Pennsylvania. He's only been in a position for a short time. That may
Mhm.
have some bearing. What about the fact that he's Jewish and this whole Israel Gaza thing? Do you think that has any bearing?
No, now he's made some comments that I personally don't like. Uh, I don't like how uh, he like compared the Palestine protesters to the KKK, and I really disagree with that. I well, just so like, is that the best thing? That he's like extremely pro-Israel. That's going to turn off that might turn off some voters. But do I think that people will just outright not vote for Kamala over that? Probably not. I think
Yeah.
that it might upset a few people, but it won't have any major impacts.
How much do you think
Well,
age? How
the
much do you
major
think?
impact will be that she can win Pennsylvania in a landslide. So
Right, that would be huge. That would be if she can win Pennsylvania in a landslide. That would be huge. Do you think age of the vice presidential candidate plays any role with the younger folks? I mean, she. I love when they say she's young. She's going to be 60. I'm 64. I like the idea that people in their 60s are thought to be young, but compared to the 80s, I guess they are young.
yeah,
But you've got her 60, Shapiro 51, Mark Kelly in Arizona. He brings a lot to it too. I just don't know if he's personable enough. He's got the border state. He's got the military. He's the astronaut. He's married to Gabby Gifford.
mhm.
He's kind of pushed back against the administration on the border thing. That might be an interesting ballast. I don't know that he has the personality for it. Then you've got Minnesota, and he's 60
I
years
like
old.
Governor Walz a lot.
And Governor Walz is outstanding. He's an everyday guy, but he's smart and he doesn't take any shit. I mean, he was a school teacher, a football coach, a congressman, and a governor. And he's just kind of a no nonsense, easygoing guy. Like you say, I don't know that whoever she picks is going to be a bad choice. They all bring something to the table. But what about Buttigieg?
Well, Buttigieg, I think he's kind of like, I love him and I really like listening to him talk, but I don't know what he necessarily would bring to the table just because of like him being from Indiana. Like Indiana's not going to go for
Right.
Kamala Harris, and neither will Kentucky. And that's why, like, as much as I really like Andy Bashir, he wouldn't necessarily be like the most like he doesn't bring a ton to the table for that reason.
And same with
Um,
Tim Walz, because we
yeah,
haven't voted Republican since 1952 here in Minnesota.
yeah.
He's not gonna have any. I mean, he's gonna help in Minnesota, but they're gonna win anyway.
That's why like Shapiro and Kelly have been the two that I've really like looked
Yeah.
at. And out of those two, I mean, Shapiro has he's younger. He's just a great speaker. Like the other day, he was at a rally and just he made a comment about how he was tired of Donald Trump shit talking America. And thank you. I love hearing that because I've been kind of saying for a while that we should try and we need to reclaim patriotism here, man. Republicans, they talk so much shit on this country. They hate it. Like nobody hates the nation more than MAGA does.
Right. That's upset my wife more than anything
Mhm.
because she's patriotic and she likes July 4th and all that stuff. But she feels, and I think a lot of people feel this way, they feel skittish about putting up an American flag because that's almost like a sign that says, I'm a Trumplafuck. And that's a shame that that's gotten to that
I,
point.
I think so too. We should be proud of being Americans. And
Yeah.
if Josh Shapiro can invigorate the youth with some of that energy, I'd love that.
You know, people have always said, is it time for a black woman or a Jewish man or a gay man? I think with the amount of millennials and Gen Zs coming up, and there's a huge amount in 2024, and in 2028, you guys will be the largest voting bloc. I don't think the race, the gender, or the sexual orientation is nearly as big a deal when the boomers were kind of in control. I
Yeah, I
mean,
don't think so either. I think that Buttigieg's like him being gay, I think that could harm him with some voters. There probably are some people that wouldn't vote for the ticket because of that, but I don't think that would be that big of a deal. I believe that the ticket, like a Harris Buttigieg ticket, would absolutely win. I have no doubt about that. But like, uh, I don't know. I guess they're not going for probability here. They want to go for certainty. And it's like with Josh Shapiro, there's pretty much no way they lose Pennsylvania. And with Pennsylvania, it's almost assured that we're going to win.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
That's kind of that's why I'm as convinced it's Shapiro as I am, I guess.
And people have already are talking about that they think they're inkling towards Shapiro because the first campaign stop for Kamala and whoever the vice president is, Philadelphia.
That's true. But then I saw somebody post that the presidential candidate will almost never announce their VP pick in the VP's home state. So like, I don't know. Like
Wow.
yeah, if you look back at like where like Tim Kaine was announced in he wasn't announced in Virginia. JD Vance wasn't announced in Ohio. Um, Mike Pence wasn't announced in Indiana. Like just kind of it's not necessarily like a thing that but who knows?
Well, and I've always talked about it. Everybody talks about it where you want to pick somebody from a swing state so you can get that state. That's not really been a big thing in the last several elections. I mean, you think about Obama picking Joe Biden. He wasn't desperate to win Delaware.
Yeah.
He picked him because he thought he could work with him, and he was relatively young and inexperienced, and Joe had massive experience, so that was a good balance point. Donald Trump didn't pick Mike Pence because he wanted to win Indiana. He was going to win Indiana. He needed a fucking lapdog that would do anything he said. So he needed a pussy ass bitch like Pence to do it. So I, I wonder how much when swing state is going to come into play. It's going to be interesting to see what she ultimately does. But I think at this point, Kamala is really kind of a force of nature,
Yeah, she
and
is.
she's going to overshadow any vice presidential candidate that she picks.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, she's she really is just like a full force now. Like
Yeah.
it I love to see it.
Well, and one of the things she's doing that I think is beneficial, and when she got this quick start, you can see she has a certain amount of confidence, and
Hmm.
you can see she's having fun with it, and people will recognize that, and that will help with keeping the momentum going.
Hmm.
What do you think happens after November 5th, January 20th? Kamala wins. Should be the first female president, first black female president, first South Asian female president. What do you
So
think
many.
what do you think the country looks like on January 20th when she takes over?
Well, I hope we're excited. Like
Yeah.
I think a lot of the young people are going to be enthused. Like I didn't really get to experience what it was like when Obama was elected for the first time, but I have to imagine, we're going to have some hopeful energy, like ready for change. Now, like there will be some Trump supporters that probably are going to be shitheads, and that'll be unfortunate. But I don't know. I'm hopeful that we'll be able to move on. Um,
Yeah, I think we will. I think people will be tired and they'll welcome the light at the end of the tunnel, the better climate culturally in this country. There's one thing that people keep bringing up, and I keep getting asked about this, and I'm so fucking tired of it. If you watch the media, and I even saw Rachel Maddow talk about this, well, there's 70 election deniers in various places around the country, and they're just not going to certify the election. And people are you afraid of that? What's going to happen? What's your initial reaction to hearing that kind of shit?
Uh, that definitely concerns me. That is like we won Georgia because the Republicans down there, they did the right thing and they certified the election and held the lieutenant governor of Georgia, Jeff Duncan, or former, I don't know if he still is.
No, he's a former. Yeah.
He endorsed Kamala Harris. Um, we were able to win that state because of some upstanding men like him who put country over party and said, we aren't going to do that for you, Donald. So knowing that there's 70 guys who are willing to look the other way for Trump. I feel like there's some sensationalism to that. Like,
I do too.
I believe that there probably will be a few motherfuckers who are going to try and pull some stuff. Like, apparently one of them's like in Arizona. I think like Maricopa County has like an election denier that's running, or one of the counties in Arizona. And so like that could be pretty problematic because that state's going to be close. So could there be they might pull some shenanigans, but at the end of the day, I feel like there's just too much light on all this. Like they aren't going to be able to successfully do whatever crap they're trying to pull.
Well, that's the point I try to make to people. People say, "Do you think they're going to cheat?" Yeah, they're going to
They're going
fucking
to try.
cheat. But what they're planning to do is the same shit they did in 2020. The difference is Donald Trump was in control and now Joe Biden's in control. That's one change. Secondly, like you said, there's light all over it. We've seen it before. And if you don't think people are out there preparing for it to handle it,
Mhm.
you'd be crazy. And secondly, what happens if they do try to pull this? Same thing that happened in 2020. It goes to court, they don't hear it, and it comes back. They lose in court. That's
Mhm.
all going to happen. And I get tired of people coming up and saying, everything's going good with Kamala, but now we got to worry about this. It's like people are out there looking for things to be upset about.
Yep, I agree. I'm trying to keep a positive attitude. I'm hopeful, and that's a good place to be.
I'm a firm believer in destiny and the right vibes, if you will. And I
Mm.
think our destiny is already set. Donald Trump will go down in flames. MAGA will be disbanded and disappear. The Republicans will be holding their dicks in their hands, trying to figure out what to do next. And we will have some sunshine at the end of the day on November 5th. I just get the feeling that I've always had that feeling, even when Biden was running, because I really thought so many people are so terrified of Donald Trump, he just cannot win against a fucking ham sandwich, for that matter. But now we've got him in that position. He's becoming hated even more now every day, and Kamala's on fire. I don't see how that's even close. I mean, I've said before, I would not be surprised. It'll be a decisive win, but I would not be surprised if it is a landslide win.
Guess we'll have to see. I don't know about a landslide, but that'd be nice. That'd be
Well,
a great thing to wake up to.
well, it's interesting, when you look at Donald Trump, we know a percentage of the Republican Party just will not vote for him.
Hmm.
We saw that with the Nikki Haley in the primaries when she wasn't even running. And apparently they weren't voting for Nikki Haley. They were voting against Donald Trump because those Nikki Haley fundraisers are now going to fucking Kamala. It had to do with, I think for some of the Republicans in the middle, they find Kamala more palatable and it's becoming fashionable to get on board with her. That sounds crazy, but I think that has a lot to do with it.
There's a growing coalition of like never Trump Republicans who are coming around to voting for Harris, and that's wonderful.
And the same with independents. You talked about independents. How many of them are going away from Donald Trump? Now, the fact of the matter is if you are a Republican, you have less voters than Democrats. If you don't have a unified party and you don't have a significant amount of independents, you cannot win. And that's exactly where Donald Trump is now. He doesn't have the whole party, We don't know how much less, but it doesn't take much more than 15% of the party to step away from him. And when I looked at some of the polls, and I take polls with a grain of salt, you talked about independents, but I looked at young people too. The difference for Kamala to Donald Trump for young people was like 70 to 28%. I mean, it's not even fucking close.
Mhm.
Do you get that sense when you talk to the young people that you know, that kind of
Definitely.
percentage?
Like it's young people are a lot more open to voting for Harris than they are Donald Trump. Like the age thing, just because that was I guess it was so ingrained for us that like, oh, can't we please just have younger candidates? And then as soon as one of the parties like nominated a younger candidate, everybody kind of came around and is backing her.
Well, it's like what we talk about advertising. They tell you over and over again something, eventually you believe it. Like Justin Bieber's a good artist. They keep telling you, and eventually you believe he's a good fucking artist.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to shit on Bieber. I'm not a fan, but I'm 64, so I don't know. What do you think about some of these younger? Everybody talks about it. My wife talks about it all the time. She says all that has to happen is Taylor Swift has to endorse Joe Biden at the time, and now Kamala, and then it's over for the young people. Do you think Taylor Swift carries that much weight with young people?
Yeah, I think Taylor Swift carries a lot of weight with young girls. I mean, absolutely. Like the 18 to 24 demographic of girls, like, yeah, Taylor Swift endorsement carries a lot of weight. And it's not just that age either. I mean, women of all ages really like Taylor Swift. She's monumentally popular.
Yeah.
Just one of the all-time, she'll go down as one of the all-time greats. Like that carries a lot of weight.
Well, one of you Gen Z's got to get on the phone and tell her she'll probably, there was a rumor going around on the internet, and then I saw other TikTokers talking about it as if it was real. We know that Beyonce is allowing Kamala to use her song "Freedom." So the rumor going around was that Beyonce and Taylor Swift was going to have a fundraiser concert. Everybody was jacked about it. That's the news they wanted to hear. And everybody was saying, well, that's happening. And then I found out it came from a publication that isn't the most reputable. And
Yeah.
it may be true down the line. Maybe they'll get an idea to do it. But at this point, it's not true. But I'm
Yeah.
hoping against hope as we get closer. We've got stars jumping on board with Kamala. Uh, Hopefully, somebody that appeals to the younger crowd will step on board just to give them a boost over the top. And Taylor Swift would do that, or any, probably not Kanye though. We can back
No,
off of.
I'm okay if Kanye sits out his Kamala endorsement. Maybe he can keep that to himself.
Let me ask, what are your, prior to the Donald Trump thing, what were your thoughts about Kanye West? And I'm going to ask you a question to see if I'm just an old man that doesn't get it.
I don't listen to rap music, so I had really no opinion on him. I knew that he was like married to Kim Kardashian at some point and had a kid with her, and
Yeah,
then
that's enough to question his integrity and his decision making. But I, my son was younger. He liked Kanye, and he goes, "He's a genius." I go, "How is this motherfucker a genius when he samples other people's hit songs and then writes a song around it?" I mean, that's Weird Al Yankovic, as far as I'm concerned.
yeah. Oh, I mean, there's a couple Kanye songs that I think are all right. Like, I don't think he's a terrible artist, but at the same time, like, yeah, he's an absolute just a clown. That man, I don't know what happened to him.
But you got to be absolutely terrified, when it comes to having stars back you up.
Mhm.
When Donald Trump comes up with Kid Rock and Hulk Hogan, I mean, Jesus Christ, how do you beat that?
Oh
Wow.
no, Hulk Hogan.
It's
I don't
like,
think he carries that much
no,
cultural relevance these days, but good for you, I guess.
yeah, it's like like a 90s revival, an
Yeah.
oldies type of Kid Rock just pisses me off. He's such a fucking phony. Such a
Hey, I
phone.
just got a notification that my laptop is at 5%. Did you have any last
No, actually, I was going to wrap it up right here. We're at about that point. So this is a good time to do that. Andy, thank you very much for coming on. It's great getting a Gen Z's perspective, and you're an articulate young man. Everybody loved you last time you were on the show. So if you want to date a 65-year-old cougar, I can probably hook you up.
all right. I'll let you
It,
know on that.
it may not be exciting, but she'll bake you cookies. So you got that going
Oh,
for you.
that's
Okay.
half the relationship right there.
Yeah, no shit. Anyway, Andy, thank you very much. For those of you listening, I want to thank you for taking the time to listen. I hope you have a great day, and we'll talk to you again tomorrow.